You think yelling back makes you strong? You're dead wrong. While you're there raising your voice trying to prove your point, getting worked up and losing your composure, she's already won. But here's what most men don't realize. Silence is the most devastating weapon you possess in any conflict. It's not about being petty. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding a fundamental truth of human psychology that will completely change how you handle conflict. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly why going silent destroys her more than any argument ever could. But here's the critical part. There's a right way and a catastrophically wrong way to do this. Stay until the end because that warning could save your entire relationship. Picture this. She's upset about something. Maybe it's legitimate. Maybe it's completely blown out of proportion. She starts raising her voice, throwing accusations, bringing up stuff from 3 years ago that has nothing to do with the current situation. And what do most guys do? They fire back. They defend themselves. They try to logic their way through an emotional conversation. They match her energy, raise their voice, and suddenly you're both in a screaming match that's going absolutely nowhere. Sound familiar? Of course it does, because that's what we've been conditioned to do. Defend, explain, argue, win. But here's what I'm about to show you. That entire approach is fundamentally flawed. Today, we're breaking down 8 psychological reasons why strategic silence is more powerful than any argument. And I'm not talking about toxic stonewalling or childish silent treatment. I'm talking about the controlled masculine response that commands respect and completely shifts the power dynamic. Point number 6 is the game changer that most men never understand. Let's dive in. Here's the first devastating effect of your silence. It creates a psychological void that her mind cannot handle. Let me explain what's happening inside her brain when you choose silence over reaction. There's a principle in psychology called the Zeigarnik effect. It states that people remember uncompleted or interrupted tasks better than completed ones. When you argue back, you complete the loop. She says something, you respond, she responds back. The cycle continues and eventually concludes. Her brain gets closure, even if it's negative closure. But when you go silent, you've just opened a loop that her brain is desperately trying to close. She said something designed to get a reaction from you. She threw out bait expecting you to bite, and you gave her nothing. No anger, no defensiveness, no explanation, just silence. Now here's where it gets interesting. That silence creates uncertainty, and uncertainty is psychological torture. Her mind starts racing. Why isn't he responding? What is he thinking? Is he angrier than I thought? Does he even care anymore? These unanswered questions don't just fade away. They amplify. They grow. They consume her thoughts in a way that your angry words never could. When you yell back, she knows exactly where you stand. She can predict your moves, anticipate your arguments, prepare her counterattacks. But your silence, that's unpredictable. That's uncharted territory. And that uncertainty will eat at her more than any heated argument ever could. You've just planted a seed of doubt that she cannot stop watering with her own overthinking. Here's a truth that will fundamentally change how you see conflict. Every argument requires 2 participants. It takes 2 people to have a fight. One person alone cannot sustain an argument. It's literally impossible. When she's escalating, when she's raising her voice, when she's trying to provoke you, she's essentially offering you emotional fuel. She's handing you the gasoline and the match and waiting for you to set everything on fire. And most men, they take it. They light that match without even thinking. But here's what happens when you refuse to accept that fuel. The fire she's trying to start has nothing to burn. She can't argue with silence. She can't escalate when there's no one escalating with her. Her anger needs your reaction to survive and grow. Without it, it has nowhere to go except back onto herself. Think about it like this. In psychology, there's a concept called emotional supply. Certain behaviors require an emotional response to be sustained. Drama requires participation. Manipulation requires someone to manipulate. When you remove yourself as a source of supply, the behavior cannot continue in the same way. She's standing there, worked up, ready for battle, and you're just calm, unbothered, silent. There's nothing for her to push against. It's like trying to fight your own shadow. The more she escalates alone, the more ridiculous she begins to feel, and somewhere deep down she knows it. That realization is far more powerful than anything you could say to prove your point. Your silence forces her to confront her own energy and that's something most people are not prepared to do. This is where the psychology gets really interesting. When you don't argue back, when you don't defend yourself, when you simply go silent, you're doing something incredibly powerful. You're holding up a mirror, and she has no choice but to look into it. Here's how this works. When you engage in the argument, you become her focus. She can blame you, point fingers at you, make you the villain in her narrative. Every word you say in defense gives her more ammunition. Every explanation you offer gives her something to dissect and tear apart. You become the target, and as long as you're the target, she never has to examine herself. But when you go silent, that dynamic completely flips. Suddenly there's no one to blame but herself. There's no one to argue with but her own thoughts. She's left alone in that room with her accusations, her anger, her behaviour. And when there's no external target, the mind does something automatic. It turns inward. This is called cognitive dissonance. It's the mental discomfort someone experiences when their actions don't align with their self-image. Most people see themselves as reasonable, as fair, as justified. But when you're screaming at someone who's calmly silent, it's very hard to maintain that self-image of being the reasonable one. She starts to question herself. Am I overreacting? Did I blow this out of proportion? Why am I the only one yelling right now? These thoughts are incredibly powerful because they're coming from her, not from you. When you tell someone they're wrong, they get defensive. But when they arrive at that conclusion themselves, that's when real change happens. Your silence doesn't just end the argument, it forces introspection. It makes her confront her own behaviour without you saying a single word, and that self-generated realisation is 10 times more effective than any point you could make verbally. You're not trying to win the argument anymore, you're making her see herself clearly, and that's a victory that lasts far beyond any heated exchange. Let's talk about what your silence actually communicates about you as a man, because this is where the real power lies. In that moment when she's trying to provoke you, when emotions are high, when she's pushing every button she knows you have, your silence sends one unmistakable message. I am in complete control of myself. Self-control is the foundation of masculine strength. Any boy can react, any immature man can yell back, get emotional, lose his composure. That's easy. That's the default. That's what weak men do. But to remain calm in the face of chaos, to stay silent when everything in you wants to defend yourself, that's rare. That's powerful. That's what separates men from boys. The ancient Stoics understood this perfectly. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When she's emotional and you're calm, when she's loud and you're silent, you're demonstrating that you're not operating on the same level. You're not going to descend into chaos just because she's inviting you to. Here's what she sees in that moment: a man who cannot be shaken, a man who's not controlled by his emotions, a man who decides when and how he responds, not someone who reacts on impulse. And on a primal level, this raises your value instantly. Women are attracted to men who have control over themselves, not men who need to prove they're right, not men who get flustered and defensive, but men who remain unmoved in the storm. Your silence isn't weakness, it's the ultimate display of strength. It says, I don't need to win this argument, I don't need to prove anything to you. I'm solid regardless of what's happening right now. And that unshakable frame is devastatingly attractive, even if she'd never admit it in the moment. Here's a fundamental truth about human psychology. Predictability kills attraction. When someone can anticipate exactly how you'll respond in every situation, they stop respecting you. They stop valuing your responses. You become easy to manipulate, easy to control, easy to take for granted. Most men are devastatingly predictable in conflict. The pattern is simple. She provokes, he reacts, they argue, it escalates. Eventually someone apologizes or they both exhaust themselves, and then the cycle repeats next time. She knows this pattern. She's seen it 100 times. She knows exactly what buttons to push to get exactly what reaction from you. But when you break that pattern, when you introduce silence where she expected anger, something in her brain short-circuits. You've just become unpredictable. And unpredictability creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, one of the most powerful psychological mechanisms for creating obsession. Think about it like this. If every time she starts an argument, you react the same way, she's got you figured out. But if sometimes you engage, sometimes you walk away, sometimes you go completely silent, she can never be certain of what she's going to get. And that uncertainty, it's magnetic. When you're silent instead of reactive, she doesn't know what you're thinking. She doesn't know if you're angry, disappointed, indifferent, or completely done. That mystery creates a gap in her understanding of you, and her brain will obsess over filling that gap. She'll think about you more. She'll check her phone waiting for your message. She'll replay the situation in her mind, trying to figure out what went wrong. Your silence has just made you the most interesting person in her world, and she didn't see it coming. Now, we get to the most critical point, the one that changes everything. Pay close attention, because this is the moment where you truly understand the game you're playing. In every single interaction between two people, someone holds the frame. Someone is in control of the emotional direction of the conversation. Someone is leading, and someone is following. In arguments, this becomes crystal clear. So let me ask you, when she's yelling and you're calm, who has the power? When she's emotional and you're composed, who's in control? When she's desperately trying to get a reaction and you're giving her silence, who's holding the frame? The answer is obvious. The silent person is the person in control. The reactive person is the person being controlled. Think about it. If her words can dictate your emotional state, if her tone can determine your response, if her behavior can pull you into chaos, then she's controlling you. You're dancing to her tune. But when you remain silent, when her provocations bounce off you like rain off a windshield, when absolutely nothing she says can move you from your center, you've just flipped the entire power dynamic. And here's the devastating part. She feels it immediately. This is the shift that destroys her more than any argument. Because deep down, on a level she might not even consciously recognize, she understands what just happened. She lost control. She tried to dictate the terms of engagement, and you refused to accept them. She attempted to make you dance, and you didn't move. This frame control, this refusal to be pulled into her chaos, is what high-value men understand instinctively. It's not about being cold or cruel. It's about maintaining your center regardless of external chaos. It's about being the oak tree in the storm, unmoved while everything around you is in motion. And here's what happens next. She starts reaching out. She starts trying to reconnect. Because the person who holds the frame is the person who holds the power, and on some level she's drawn to that power, even if it frustrates her in the moment. Your silence just demonstrated that you cannot be controlled, and paradoxically that makes you more valuable in her eyes. Let's talk about something most men don't consider in the heat of the moment: the long-term cost of engaging in drama. Every time you match her energy, every time you descend into a screaming match, every time you allow yourself to be pulled into chaos, you lose something valuable. You lose respect, both hers and your own. Your masculine energy is precious. It's what allows you to build, create, protect, and lead. When you waste it on pointless arguments, when you drain it through emotional conflict, when you deplete it by engaging with drama, you have less of it for the things that actually matter in your life. Strategic silence protects your peace. It's a boundary that says, I will not allow chaos to enter my space. It preserves your dignity because you're not saying things you'll regret later. You're not calling names, making accusations, or crossing lines that can't be uncrossed. Think about the last big argument you had. Did you say things you wish you could take back? Did you go to places you knew were below the belt? Most men have, and those words don't disappear. They create scars. They get remembered and brought up in future conflicts. When you choose silence, you protect yourself from that. She can't quote you later because you didn't say anything. She can't twist your words because there were no words to twist. Your reputation, both to yourself and to her, remains intact. You walked away from the chaos with your dignity fully intact, and that's something that pays dividends far beyond the immediate conflict. Now here's where we need to pump the brakes and get serious for a moment, because there's a dark side to all of this that you absolutely must understand. There is a massive difference between strategic silence and toxic silent treatment. And if you get this wrong, you'll destroy your relationship and become the exact kind of man you should never want to be. Let me be crystal clear about something. Using silence as a weapon to punish, control, or emotionally abuse someone is not strength. It's cowardice, it's manipulation, and it's toxic as hell. The toxic silent treatment looks like this. She does something that upsets you, maybe something minor, maybe even something she didn't realize hurt you, and instead of communicating, you shut down for days. You refuse to acknowledge her existence. You give her the cold shoulder for a week. You use your silence as punishment, as a way to make her suffer, as a tool to control her behavior through emotional withdrawal. This is not what I'm teaching you. This is the opposite of masculine strength. This is passive-aggressive manipulation, and it's the behavior of someone who lacks the courage to communicate honestly. Strategic silence, the kind I've been describing, has completely different characteristics. It's time-limited, it's purposeful, it's about de-escalation, not punishment. Here's what strategic silence looks like in practice. She starts an argument. You recognize that emotions are too high for productive communication. You say, "I need some time to think about this. Let's talk in an hour when we're both calm," and then you step away. Not for days, not for weeks, for 30 minutes to 2 hours max. Just long enough for the emotional temperature to drop. Then you come back and you communicate. You set boundaries, you express what you will and won't accept, you have the actual conversation that needs to be had. The silence was just a tool for de-escalation, not a weapon for punishment. Now, here are the situations where you should absolutely not use silence. First, when there are serious relationship issues that require genuine resolution. If she's bringing up a legitimate concern about your relationship, shutting down isn't strength, it's avoidance. Second, when she's genuinely apologetic and trying to make things right. If she's approached you with sincere remorse and a desire to fix things, give her that opportunity. Don't weaponize silence when someone's trying to build a bridge. Third, during important life decisions or conversations that affect both of you. Your silence during critical moments isn't mysterious or powerful, it's just irresponsible. Fourth, when your silence crosses from boundary setting into passive-aggressive punishment. If you find yourself enjoying watching her squirm, if you're using silence to make her pay, if you're refusing to communicate specifically because you know it hurts her, you've crossed the line. The right way to use strategic silence is this. You use it to prevent yourself from saying things you'll regret. You use it to de-escalate situations that have become unproductive. You use it to set boundaries around what kind of energy you'll accept in your space. You use it to maintain your composure and dignity. But you always follow it up with honest communication once emotions have settled. You're not trying to win through attrition. You're not trying to break her down. You're simply refusing to participate in chaos while remaining open to productive dialogue. Remember this. Emotional unavailability is not the same as emotional control. Don't confuse being stoic with being emotionally closed off. Don't mistake strategic silence for stonewalling. One is strength, the other is weakness disguised as strength. Let's bring this all together because I want to make sure you understand not just what to do, but why it matters. We've covered 8 devastating psychological effects of strategic silence. The void it creates that her mind cannot close, the way it removes the fuel her drama needs to survive, how it forces self-reflection instead of external blame, the unshakable self-control it demonstrates, the mystery and unpredictability it introduces, the complete power shift it creates when you refuse to be controlled, the protection it offers your peace and dignity, and critically, the warning about when not to use it. But here's the bigger picture that I need you to understand. This isn't really about winning arguments. This isn't about playing mind games or trying to outsmart her. This is about something far more fundamental. This is about you becoming a man who cannot be moved from his center, a man who chooses his battles, a man who protects his peace above all else. The right woman will respond to this strength with respect. She'll recognize that you're not like other men she's dealt with. She'll understand that drama doesn't work on you, and over time, she'll actually test you less, not more, because she learns that chaos isn't your language. The wrong woman will escalate when you refuse to play her games. She'll get angrier when you don't give her the reaction she wants. And honestly, that's valuable information too, because it shows you exactly who you're dealing with. Remember this fundamental truth. A man who can't control his emotions will always be controlled by a woman who can't control hers. Don't be that man. Choose silence. Choose power. Choose yourself. If this video changed how you think about conflict, drop a comment right now and just write "Silence is power." I want to see how many of you are ready to implement this in your life. Subscribe to this channel because next week we're diving into the 5 things women do when they know they've lost you forever. These are the signs that she realizes she messed up, and you need to know them. Until then, remember, your silence is not weakness, it's not avoidance, it's not fear. Your silence is the conscious choice of a man who values his peace more than being right, and that's the most powerful position you can ever hold. Stay strong, stay silent when it matters, and I'll see you in the next one.